All right, this will be our last section on AI. So let's get started. But before we get started, remember to like, subscribe, and share this to anyone you know who's taking the AWS AI Practitioner Exam. So threat detection for AI. Your primary service for that is going to be GuardDuty, right? I spelled that incorrectly, but that's fine. Um, so with this, you can deploy AI-based systems to detect fake content, data manipulation, and automated attacks, right? So first, what we're going to do is go to GuardDuty. All right, so we have threat detection with this. You have the GuardDuty with all features or GuardDuty for malware with S3. All right, so we'll click all features, get started. And then from here, you can enable GuardDuty. Now, here's the protection plans that are here. You have a low level risk. So it'll analyze VPC flow logs, CloudTrail management, DNS queries, CloudTrail S3 events, ECAS audits, Lambdas, RDS logins, block storage to generate malware detections. And you can view some service role service role permissions, and you can look at the protections plans, right? So enabling GuardDuty will automatically enable it for all protection plans except for runtime monitoring and malware for S3. And you can always select that from the GuardDuty console or APIs, all right? And you can use GuardDuty you can suspend GuardDuty or disable certain plans, right? Remember, this is going to cost, and you can learn here. There's a 30-day free trial, but the basic things you're going to do is enable GuardDuty, and then from here, you're going to set up export options for, I'm not going to enable it, just it's going to cost, it's going to be a pain, but I'm just going to tell you what it's going to do. From here, you can set up S3 buckets for your findings to export to that. Then you can set up findings to generate test findings to verify the setup. You can generate a threat list for custom IPs, and you can have a trusted IP list so you can whitelist known machine learning development environments. So think your SageMaker, your Bedrock, et cetera, right? And then within that, you can focus on AI-related resources like SageMaker notebook instances, EC2s running machine learning workloads, or S3s containing training data for those machine learning tools. All right, and you can configure your custom filters and be A-OK. Other service you're going to use is Detective. All right, so this is investigating a lot of security issues. All right, so here you can see the logs that can be ingested, what it can do, analyzing those logs, and then the visualizations it can produce. Click Get Started, and from here you would set up your administrator, and you could set up the data sources that it would ingest the data from. The primary ones are going to be VPC flow logs, DNS logs, CloudTrail event logs, and GuardDuty findings, which we just talked about. From here, you can investigate AI-related security events. So that could be IP addresses accessing machine learning endpoints, IAM users with machine learning permissions, or S3 buckets with training data. And then you can visualize those relationships and understand the attack patterns over time, and you can have time analysis to track events over time. All right. Another tool which you could do for vulnerability management would be SSM or Systems Manager, right? Well, SSM is a portion of Systems Manager, okay? So this is a more secure way to access your AWS resources rather than SSHing in here. So what we'll go is go into Systems Manager. And Systems Manager would be one tool you would use, but another one, let's see, Patch, I think that's the only one. Yeah, okay, so Patch Manager, all right? And from here, you can create your patch policies, all right? And see the dashboards for this, okay? So create the batch policy. All right, create your patch policies names. So, machine learning, infra, patch. Okay. What's it going to do? Scan and install for any patches for your security for any machine learning related software on those EC2 workloads, right? And then you can do recommended or custom scans, right? Daily or a cron expression, right? Your patch baseline, use a recommended default or custom patch baseline. So you can see all these different operating systems that are available in the AWS environment. We'll just do recommended defaults. And then your patch log. So you store this in your S3, browse here, and you'd see what buckets are available. Select one of these and be able to go with your targets, your organization, custom organizations, or the current account. All right. The rate control. So this is the rate you want to run your your patch policy with. Here's the percentage of nodes. We'll do that. We'll just keep that default, right? And then your instance profile. We can create this so that that instance profile has the correct roles to make those installations and updates, and then create a new IAM local deployment role, or we can use an existing one, right? So this has the ability to have that patch for the patch policy, and then the Explorer role. So this is the permissions used to explore and enable Explorer within your EC2s, right? You have your management details, your tags, and then you would go ahead and click create, which we're not going to do that. All right, we're not going to do that. And then for here, you have a maintenance window. All right. And this is when you would actually patch everything. So you can create the maintenance window to target when you're going to do this, usually off hours to minimize the machine learning workload. All right. And so you say ML workload patching, something like that, right? And then you describe it, unregistered targets. So anything not associated with this, you could do a cron, you could do a rate scheduler. So let's say you could set it up every 30 minutes. That's a lot. Let's say daily, every day at 02 a.m. and it'll last 2 hours. And then let's see, 0.5. Can we do that? So half an hour before 2 p.m. or 2 a.m., excuse me. And for a 2 hour window, you'll be able to do this. And then you'll have the start date if you want to do this optionally for the maintenance window, and then the time zone you would set for this. So let's say I'm Eastern Standard. So let's say, let's say America, Eastern Standard, GMT. All right. Add the tags if necessary, and then create that maintenance window. So this will allow sufficient time for patching on off hours, and then you'd have tags based off of your machine learning infrastructure. And then you could associate the patch baseline. All right, we're going to cancel that. All right, and you have to remember there's infrastructure protections for AI systems, right? So infrastructure protections, this includes a secure cloud platform, edge devices and data sources, right? You want to implement access control, network segmentation, and data encryption, which we talked about already as far as IAM and keys, right? Those KMS keys and any IAM policies. And this ensures resilience to system failures. Okay, so one way you could do this is for your VPC, right? So you could create a VPC for an AI workload. Let's just give you an example of how you would do this. All right, so VPC and more, auto generate. No, we're going to say AI secure VPC. Okay, and then we're going to set the CIDR block. We'll just keep that here. And then subnets. Let's see. We have two public, two private, and then VPC endpoints. We have a S3 gateway. That's good. And then we could create the VPC. All right. Oops. And we'll delete this. Luckily, they don't cost a lot. So that's good. Okay. And then we'll go for security groups. We'll create a security group based off of this name. Why don't I see that? Okay, there we go. All right. SG, S for security group. All right. And then for the VPC, we'll select the AI VPC. Then we'll select inbound rules. So let's see. HTTPS for port 443. And then you can select specific CIDRs. And let's just say, oh, let's say my IP, and then SSH, oops, SSH. All right, from my IP, and then custom TCP, and then you'd enter, whatever it would be for the, uh, this is just, it's not, that's ingress for anywhere, but what you don't want, but you'd have the custom IP and port for the ML. So ML application, right? And you would restrict it by that source, right? But this is not the correct, the zero dot is not correct. Okay, and then the correct for outbound rules. So you have all traffic going egress, which you could change to, let's see, HTTPS. Oops, HTTPS. Say HTTPS outbound or 443 for, let's see, AWS API access. That's just a description. And then you want to have, let's say, TCP custom. And then you see that port range right here. You set that for the specific machine learning, and then machine learning port. All right. And you can configure the tags here for this. I'm going to click cancel. Okay. And then NACLs. Okay. And from NACLs, you could have specific NACLs for the machine learning ports. Okay. So let's see. NACL. And then you'd select that VPC. All right. And then from here, you can configure tags to work with this, create the NACL, and you would be good to go. And you would have inbound and outbound rules based off the security group we configured for the specific subnet. But we're going to click cancel. All right. Another protection you can have would be WAF. All right. Okay. So WAF would be good for protecting any inbound for your applications from any common web exploitations. All right. So one thing you would do, you click create the web ACL, and then it's in this region. Okay. Click, type in AI WAF, and then AI WAF, right? That's whatever. And you have a CloudWatch metric name for this. You have your region selected. Click next. And then you can set up wait, did I see? Oh, resources. There we go. Add AWS resources. Okay, so this would be application load balancer for any AI that would be here, and you can look for it if this is here. So if you had SageMaker or Bedrock or some web application that was running, you could associate that with here, right here, add it, click add, and then be good. We're gonna click cancel, go next. All right, and then you start making a core rule set, okay? So you start adding rules. So you can add managed rule groups from AWS. All this is here, or you can go here and add your own rules, right? IPs, rule builder, rule groups, all right? And this will be known bad inputs, SQL databases. And then, let me see. All right, we're gonna cancel that. All right, and then you'll have the web ACL units, and then your default actions. Click next, and then you can order the rule priority 0 to, I think it's 10,000. 0 being the most important, 10,000 being the least important. And then click next. And you have some of the CloudWatch metrics you can configure. And then you can sample this so that you can push this and suppress this for any that don't match your web ACLs, right? Click next. You review this to make sure everything's up to date, and then create. But we're going to click cancel. All right. And for that, you would click your logging, your monitoring, and set that up within CloudWatch logs or S3, and then make sure everything is going for your security analysis. All right. And once your CloudWatch metrics are there, you'll be able to enable that for monitoring, set up any alarms or any blocked requests, and then perform any actions via EventBridge or have it configure any SNS notifications for your team or for you. All right. And a couple of things that we're not going to go over because we went over earlier, but it would just be repetition. Okay, prompt injections. That's another security mechanism. So this would protect against manipulated prompts that generate malicious content by implementing guardrails. All right, so we already talked about that earlier. Guardrails in Bedrock, that would be another feature. Okay. And another feature we could talk about, let's just let this boot up. All right, guardrails is one. It's good for that. And then you have data encryption. So this would be done in S3 with server-side encryption, or KMS, which is that key management system, which we already went over. All right, so that data encryption would allow data to be encrypted at rest or in transit. And you can also manage your encryption keys to make sure that you have encryption within your cloud environment. Then you have monitoring the AI systems, which you've already covered. So that would be used with CloudWatch and CloudTrail. From this, you could track performance metrics. So that means the accuracy, the precision, the recall, and the latency. You can monitor your infrastructure. That means your CPU or GPU usage, your network performance, or your storage. And you can account for bias, fairness, and compliance with their AI. And remember, these all apply to the AWS Shared Responsibility Model, right? So remember that AWS is responsible for security of the cloud. That means the infrastructure, the actual physical data centers, the hardware, the software. Users, which is who we are responsible for data or security in the cloud. That means the data management, the access controls, the guardrails. And so it would be everything from Security Hub, the VPCs, any workloads that would be going through EC2s, any IAM roles, any encryption keys, any S3 encryption. All of these things would be inclusive. All right. So remember, the best practices for secure data engineering include the following. 1, assess your data quality. Make sure the data is complete, accurate, and timely. 2, privacy. Use data masking, some obfuscation, encryption, tokenization. That would be something like Macy, S3 encryption, KMS encryption. 3, data access control. Implement role-based access using IAM and fine-grained permissions. And 4, data integrity. So maintain data consistency, perform regular backups, and monitor integrity controls. So some final key takeaways for this exam. Remember, your critical security components will be GuardDuty, Security Hub, and Detective, right? Also, Inspector and Patch Manager. Okay, let me step back a second. For threat detection, GuardDuty, Security Hub, and Detective. For vulnerability management, that would be Inspector and Patch Manager. For infrastructure protection, that would be your VPC, your WAF, your security groups, your NACLs. For data encryption, that would be your KMS, your S3 encryption, your EBS encryption. For access control, that would be IAM, your bucket policies, and your VPC endpoints. Okay? And then remember some AI-specific security considerations like the prompt injection, which we just talked about, using guardrail, input validation, model monitoring. So that means looking at the performance, the bias, and the fairness. Look at the data privacy. How do you mask, tokenize, or protect your PII? And finally, your incident response. How do you respond to any issues, and what is your recovery process? And then finally, remember the AWS Shared Responsibility Model. AWS is responsible for data of the cloud. The customer or the user, like us, is responsible for data in the cloud. Outside of that, I think this is a good walkthrough for the AWS AI Practitioner Exam. I would recommend taking this after the AWS SSA, just because the exam is about 40% of the material from that exam and about 60% of material about the actual AI and machine learning services. You can also look on this channel for our question, answer, and analysis, and we'll be able to have more material about that. And then we'll go on with other material revolving around AWS, GCP, Azure, and a bunch of other IT-related specialties. But thank you for joining me in this walkthrough. Hope you have a good day. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this with anyone interested in getting into the cloud. Thank you.